"How much longer can you guzzle, Betty?" Thomas said one morning, and the woman nearly choked on the sandwich she'd just taken a bite of. "So I can't even eat my breakfast anymore, or what?" she asked, looking at her husband, shocked. "You can, but it is not necessary to eat all those sandwiches and other junk food. You can make oatmeal." Betty was shocked because she had never seen her husband behave this way before. Her appearance hadn't changed a bit since the wedding, so she didn't understand what he didn't like about her. Deciding that he was just in a bad mood because of an upcoming meeting at work, Betty didn't argue with her husband and didn't try to sort things out. She didn't want to eat the sandwich anymore either, so she finished her coffee and drove to work. At the office, Betty thought back several times to the contempt she saw in her husband's eyes. She was uncomfortable with his words, so she decided to ask him why he said that and what exactly he didn't like. "You eat like a horse. Look at you. Your legs are fat. Your belly looks like you are pregnant," her husband said when she started the evening conversation she was preparing for. She didn't want to say anything else. Betty pursed her lips and headed to the bathroom. She stood for a long time looking at herself in the mirror. Her body had not changed a bit. Well, she didn't look like a model. She had the most ordinary body. But her husband saw who he was promising to. So why was he angry now? It wasn't clear at all. At her height, 175 centimeters, Betty weighed about 80 pounds. A little over 80 actually, or to be more accurate, 89 kilograms. But she had always weighed that much. Losing weight certainly would be a good idea. But her husband's behavior was suspicious. He had never acted this way before, never been rude to her. And now his words made her want to cry. After sitting under a cool shower for about half an hour, Betty changed her clothes and went to the bedroom. Thomas was already asleep. The woman decided that since he didn't like the way she looked, she would go to the gym and try to get better so her husband would like her. The next day, Betty went to the gym for the first time, and she loved it. She didn't know if she could actually lose weight, but the workout made her feel much more alert. "Where have you been?" her husband asked in a grumpy voice when Betty came home later than usual. "I went to the gym. I'll always be back by this time from now on," she answered. There was no desire to talk to her husband yet. His words still echoed in her head hurtfully. He could have spoken more gently about his grievances, and then Betty would certainly have listened to his words, and she wouldn't be offended. Good. Betty looked in the refrigerator. Then she looked at her husband. "Where are the meatballs? I made them for today and tomorrow." "No meatballs. I ate them," Thomas declared. Betty was surprised. She had never seen her husband have such a strong appetite. But since there was no food left, she decided to make some lentils and eat them with the green salad. She was told that such a meal was great for losing weight. Thomas walked off to his room and soon fell asleep, and Betty sat at the table slowly drinking her tea, which had already gotten cold. She was thinking. Her impression was that her husband had an affair. If he had a mistress, it could explain such strange behavior, but she did not want to start a conversation with him and spoil her mood. The next day, Betty came home early because she had completely forgotten about the trainer's recommendation not to strain her body and to exercise every other day. There was a smell of garlic and meatballs in the apartment that her husband had said he had finished yesterday. Betty walked into the kitchen and saw Thomas quickly eating the meatball, almost choking on it. "Didn't you say you ate it all yesterday?" The woman was surprised. "Well, I did, but today I remembered that I left one, and there was no other food, so I decided to eat it." Betty only nodded and did not say anything else. She began to think that her husband had a mental problem because he was acting really weird. But for now, she wasn't ready for another conversation that might bring nothing but pain. A month had passed. Betty had already gotten the first results. She had lost 6 kilos and strengthened her body so much that she was getting less tired at work. Her husband seemed to be acting a little more gentle now, but he still kept hiding food from the woman. Betty did not tell him that she cooked stuffed chicken, pilaf, pies, and other foods for him only. Betty herself decided to follow a different diet to lose weight sooner. So it was fun to see her husband hiding food from her. She already knew almost all of his secret stashes, but most of the time he hid food on the balcony because it was chilly out there at night. His paranoia was getting really frightening. Betty was going to talk to her husband, but she couldn't make up her mind. Another month passed, and the woman lost 4 more kilos. Thomas began to smile at his wife more and more and began to actively participate in married life, trying to seduce his wife. Except now, she could not reciprocate because of the understatement, which led to various disturbing thoughts and fears. At the gym, many different men began to pay attention to Betty. All of them had bodies that were significantly different from her husband's. But despite the resentment that was still in her heart and wouldn't go away, the woman still loved her husband. She had no intention of cheating on him or finding a replacement. Thomas did not apologize for the words he had told his wife. And actually, she couldn't be sure, and he wasn't cheating on her when he behaved so aggressively. But they were spouses after all. She had no plans to cheat on her husband. "Just look at you. You look so skinny now." Thomas approached her from behind while Betty was straightening her dress. Thomas persuaded her to join him at a birthday party at the company he worked for. He had never invited her to go with him before and told her it was better not to meet his coworkers because they were all inadequate. But this time, Thomas insisted that she should go with him. Pleased with her appearance, Betty looked at her husband. She felt as if there was no trace of resentment left, that she had forgiven Thomas even though he had never asked for forgiveness. He acted as if he didn't notice he was guilty. She turned and kissed her husband. Drowning in his embrace, the woman felt needed, but his words spoken afterward hurt her like a knife. "Now I'm not ashamed to show you to my colleagues. You know, all of my colleagues' wives are so gorgeous, like models, and you were like a fat cow. But now you are so sweet. Yum, that's what I needed. Everyone will stare at you with their mouths open and envy me." At that moment, Betty thought she'd rather have a bucket of dirt dumped all over her than listen to this. The words Thomas was saying made her want to punch him. The woman stepped back and looked at her husband, looking him straight in the eye. "Is that the reason you've been hiding food from me?" she asked. "Hiding food? No. I didn't do that." Thomas looked visibly nervous, and his pupils were darting from side to side, revealing a brazen lie. Betty started laughing. She hadn't felt this amused and relieved in a long time. She thought for a second that the man she'd fallen in love with was standing right in front of her, but now she knew she was wrong. And most importantly, she didn't feel the pain of loss. She didn't really care whether Thomas left or not, although not really. There was no reason to lie to herself anymore. She did care. She wanted him to leave right now and never come back into her life again. "Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Betty asked. "But I know you've been hiding food from me. I even know all of your stashes. Do you want me to tell you where you hid the food last time?" "Betty, sweetheart, hold on. Let's not fight. I mean, everything that I did was good for you, right? Well, look at how beautiful you are now. Now I'm jealous of myself. I saw my friends and colleagues' wives before, and I thought I'd make a mistake marrying you. But no, I made no mistake. Sweetheart, we have to go, or we'll be late for the events." The woman stood still and did not move. Thomas looked at her husband with contempt. Then she began to remove her beautiful earrings. Thomas noticed this and asked, "What are you doing?" "Go to your vent alone." "What happened? Why are you so angry?" He continued to act like he didn't understand anything, as if he hadn't done or said anything offensive, as if it was okay to look at his wife in the eye and tell her that he had been ashamed of her before, even though he had chosen his wife himself. And now he wanted to brag to his coworkers like she was a new smartphone or a luxury car. Betty walked around her husband, approached him from behind, took him by the shoulders, and turned him toward the mirror. He looked at himself in bewilderment. She patted his belly and said softly, "You have a belly like a pregnant cow. Probably next year your breasts will be the same size as mine, and you also have a bald spot in your head that can't be fixed. Get out. I'll pack your bags and give them to you tomorrow. Don't ever come here again. I won't let you in anyway because it's my apartment, and I'll file the divorce myself." "What's wrong, my love?" "Nothing. I just realized that you've become too ugly for me. You're not my type anymore." Thomas tried to convince his wife that everything was all right, but she no longer believed his lying words. Maybe he liked her when they were dating, but it certainly wasn't love. And after they got married, he just became envious of others and ashamed of Betty. That was it. He wanted to have a beautiful doll by his side. When he realized that nothing would ever be the same and his wife was serious about it, Thomas left the apartment. He slammed the door loudly, saying one last thing. "I'll find someone better than you, someone smart, and you're stupid." He walked out. Right after that, Betty felt relieved. It felt as if a heavy burden fell from her shoulders. Betty immediately started to pack his bags so she could get him out of her mind. It was sad that it had happened this way, but Betty didn't regret that she had taken care of herself and changed, nor did she regret seeing the true personality of her husband. She knew that she wouldn't be lost without him, that she could build a real family one day, but now she decided she wouldn't rush into it and would just live for herself and enjoy her freedom after she divorced.